Hey everyone, I'm Stone. Welcome back to Mountaintop Kitchen. Today we're taking classic pumpkin pie to higher ground. Silky pumpkin custard, a splash of bourbon, and that nutty kiss of brown butter. The crust, well, it's golden, tender, and oh so flaky. So take a deep breath. You're about to smell fall in full bloom. Okay, so let's get started making this crust. Now this is a traditional crust that I always make, and it's the King Arthur recipe. I have a love-hate relationship with pies. I love to eat them, but making the crust isn't always a dream. So I stick to this one recipe unless I'm doing something like a graham cracker or an Oreo crust. I use this because it works every time. So we're going to start with some all-purpose flour, King Arthur, of course. And I'm going to, with clean hands, I'm going to mix in some of this shortening here. And I'm just going to work it in, get it nicely coated with the flour. And I also have some salt. Let's get this, just a little bit of fine sea salt. Get that in, work it in as well. Now I have some butter. This is cold butter. Should have unwrapped it first, but I did not. And I have this cut up into cubes, just small cubes. And let's get that all in. And again, just with clean hands, I'm going to get this coated. And then I'm going to move the butter over to one side. And I'm going to start just pressing this with my fingertips to kind of flatten it out into pieces. This will make your job of rolling much easier too in a bit. I'll fast forward this so that you don't have to watch all of this. Okay, once I have the cubes kind of flattened out, I just like to work the butter into the flour to get a nice sandy consistency. You don't want to break up the butter too much. You want to have some small and some larger pieces. About the size of a walnut would be the largest piece you should have. And I don't see any that are larger than a walnut right now, so I think we're doing pretty good. Now, I'm just going to make a well in the middle here. And I'm going to start to put in some of this ice cold water. I have some water with ice cubes in it. You do want to have ice cold water. I'm going to put in a couple tablespoons and then just start mixing with my hands. You want to be as quick as possible because you don't want your butter to start to melt. Okay, and as you can see, you can start to actually get a sort of a dough forming here. It's still a little bit too dry right now, so let's add in another tablespoon of water. You just want to add a little bit at a time, and I can already feel now that we have a dough that's forming here. So I'm going to go ahead and get this out. I'm going to set a little bit of this to the side because you always have some dry bits down the bottom. I'm going to add just a little bit of water to the dry bits down there and do that separately. And then put my other dough back in, my other pie crust dough. The trick is to use the least amount of water as possible so that you'll end up with a nice flaky crust. So let me get this out of the bowl and we'll be right back to do the first set of rolling and folding before we put this in the fridge. So we're just going to roll this out. You want to make sure you're not sticking to the table. So you might need to move it every once in a while. Get some more flour under there. Even turn it over. Okay, now I'm just going to fold the dough over. Doesn't matter if it tears at this point. And fold it over again. Gather up any little pieces that I have laying around. Going to flour my surface a little bit again. And I'm going to roll this out one more time. And you'll notice that we're kind of losing a round shape. We really didn't have one to begin with. That wasn't the point, or is not the point at this point. So just keep rolling. Okay, just going to pick this up and sort of just fold it into a square. And then to get back to that disc shape, I'm just going to fold these corners under. Just keep folding under until I get kind of a disc, a round disc shape again. And there you go. Flatten it out a little bit. So I'm just going to wrap this into some plastic wrap and get this disc into the fridge for 30 minutes. We need to have that time in the fridge for the flour to absorb the water, and we'll bring it back out and it'll be much easier to roll. Okay, so I just finished up crimping the edge of my pie shell, my crust, and I'm just going around and making little small adjustments because I want it to look really pretty, but I think that's pretty good as it is. So to crimp, you just take your thumb and your forefinger out of one hand and your pointing finger at the other, and just go around and form a little V and press into it. So I think that's looking pretty good. They're not all exactly the same size, but it's good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to stick this in the fridge for about 15 minutes and then bring it back. We're going to dock it, punch some holes in the bottom of it, and we're going to get this baked. We're going to par bake it before we make our custard. So let me get this in the fridge. Okay, I just took this out of the fridge. It was in there for about 15 or 20 minutes. And now I'm just going to take a fork and I'm going to dock the crust by punching some holes into the bottom. This will help to keep the crust from blistering up and forming a bubble. We're also going to do the sides. So we'll go around and just, because we don't want the sides to blister up either. And when I par bake this for the first run, I will bring the pie shell out and I'll dock it again and put it back in for the last 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, so just pressing and putting some fork holes in the bottom. Now what we're going to do, I have the oven preheated at 375. Now you can use these ceramic pie weights, but I don't have enough of them for a pie of this size. So I use these for my smaller pies or my tarts and whatnot. But I do have this huge bag of dried garbanzo beans that I'll be using. So first I'm going to crinkle up a piece of parchment paper. It just makes it easier to get it into all the little areas of the pie crust. Just really wrinkle it up as best you can. And we're going to place this down in the bottom of the pie crust. Press it all around. And just pour. You can use any kind of dried beans. You can buy a bunch of these. They're quite expensive, but you can buy like 4 or 5 of them. But I'd rather just use these, and I can use them over and over again. So I'm just going to pour them in. There we go. And kind of press them around. You want to get right up against the sides of your pie crust as well, because you don't want that blistering. So kind of look around, press over into those areas. You don't have to worry about damaging anything. There's not much to damage at this point. And I'm going to pop this into the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes at 375. Bring it back out, dock it again, and put it back in for another 5 to 10 minutes. So we'll be right back, and we're going to make the custard. Okay, while we're par baking our crust, we're going to go ahead and get started on our bourbon pumpkin custard filling. Oh yes, brown butter as well. Okay, so I'm going to start just by mixing some brown sugar and some spices. I have some ginger, some ground ginger, ground cinnamon. I have a little bit of ground black pepper. I have a bit of ground nutmeg and a little bit of fine sea salt. I'm going to mix all that in. And these are our somewhat dry ingredients, although sugar is not really a dry ingredient. And move on with all of our wet ingredients. Okay, to start with, we're going to put in our pumpkin puree. So let's get that in. I have some heavy cream. And in place of 1/4 cup of the heavy cream, I'm using some evaporated milk just to add a little bit more flavor. All right. I have some browned butter that we made earlier. That's going to go in as well. And you don't want to leave any of those browned bits in there. You want to get all that out. Okay, let's go ahead and get this mixed up a little bit. Then I have 3 whole eggs. 1, 2, 3. And 1 egg yolk. So that's 3 eggs and 1 egg yolk. I'll break those up a little bit. Get those mixed in. And I have the bourbon, of course. So let's get the bourbon in. And some molasses. Now you can use sorghum syrup, but today we're going to use dark molasses. This is not Bootstrap. This is like your grandma's brand of molasses, that sort of thing. Okay. And we have our molasses is in. Perfect. Let's get all that mixed up well. This is going to be so good. Bourbon, custard, pumpkin with molasses. All right. And now let's get in our somewhat dry mixture. Give it one last stir and add that in as well. All right. Our crust will be ready soon. So we have this ready. When our crust cools off, we'll be bringing our crust back out, docking it one more time, taking out the pie weights and sticking it back in the oven for about 15 minutes. But now we have our pumpkin custard, our bourbon brown butter pumpkin custard filling ready to go. So I'm just going to pop this in the fridge until we're ready. Okay, so this was in the oven for about 20 minutes. It's super hot, so be careful. And what we need to do now is lift out these pie weights, aka dried garbanzo beans. So I'm just going to make sure it's not sticking anywhere and gather the 4 corners and just lift this out. Now this is very hot, so be careful and have a heat-proof bowl ready. Drop it in there. All right, now this is going to go back in for about another 5 to 10 minutes. But before we put it back in, let's go ahead and dock it once again. Okay, I think that's good enough. So we're going to put this back in now for another 5 to 10 minutes. So here we go. Okay, our crust is par-baked. Now it just needs to cool down. As soon as it's cooled completely, we will pour in our bourbon brown sugar pumpkin custard filling and bake this baby. But this has to cool completely down first. Oh, and while we're waiting for our pie crust to cool down and bake this baby, how about clicking that subscribe button right down there? And please share, like our videos so that we can help to get the word out, or you can help to get the word out. It really helps the channel out. Okay, so it's just waiting now for this to cool down. I love pumpkin pie. My grandmother taught me how to make it. This is my little updated boozy version, but of course she didn't use brown butter back then. But she's the person who taught me how to make pumpkin pie to begin with, and in a little tiny kitchen in East Detroit. But she got it done, and we both fit in there, surprisingly. Okay, we're back, and our pie crust is completely cooled down, and we're ready to put our custard, our browned butter, bourbon custard, pumpkin custard into the pie shell and get it baked. Now we have our oven, a conventional oven set at 300 degrees Fahrenheit, about 150 Celsius. We're going to bake this for about 50 to 55 minutes until the edges are set and the middle's a little wobbly, something like a cheesecake. Okay, so let's go ahead and just pour this into our crust. Look at that. That color is beautiful. Now, I'm not by any means a master pie baker. I find pies quite challenging, but I do enjoy to make them once in a while. And this is one of the pies that I do like to make, pumpkin pie. And it's so seasonal right now for Thanksgiving, for the holidays, just for November, just because everything pumpkin is so good. I'm not really big on pumpkin drinks, but I love all treats made with pumpkin. Okay, so here we go. We have got our pie ready to put into the oven. So let's get this baby into the oven. And while we're baking it, we're going to go ahead and get our topping ready, a brown sugar sour cream topping. Okay, while our brown butter bourbon pumpkin pie is baking, let's go ahead and prepare our brown sugar sour cream topping. We're going to need some sour cream. So let's get about 120 grams of sour cream. Okay, and we're going to add about 12 grams of brown sugar. Let's add our 12 grams. There we go. And about a quarter teaspoon of some good vanilla extract, which we have right here. Let's put that over there. Get these things out of our way. And there we go. And we're just going to mix all of that up. So let me get this into the fridge and we'll be back when our pie is finished. Okay, it's Halloween today, by the way. So happy Halloween, and in another day, it's going to be Dia de Muertos here in Mexico. So we have our lovely pie right here, our brown butter bourbon pumpkin pie. And we're going to try to cut into it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make a clean cut, but we are going to try. So here goes cutting the pie. Let's go right to the center. Cut on through and down through that crust. That's the part I'm worried about. It's splintering. And we'll go through here. Again, cut through the pie and straight through the crust. Okay, here goes. Wish me luck. I think the crust is going to break off because how do you get down in there without doing that? Okay, the crust did break off, but we knew that was going to happen on the first piece. So, okay, we're going to go ahead and try this, but let's go ahead and put some of our brown sugar sour cream that we made on top. Just put a little dollop right there. And I have a few little pomegranate seeds that I'd like to add right to the top here. Let's go ahead and try this. Yes, we made a mess with the crust cutting it. The first piece, that is going to happen. So let's try it though. So custardy, lovely flavor. Here you go. Very good. So, if you'd like this recipe, let's turn it this way so we can see it better. Then, how about trying this one right up here? And don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you the next time on Mountaintop Kitchen. Goodbye. I'm gonna keep eating, just like I always do.